The New York Knicks aren't in a good place right now. Despite having made the playoffs last year with a team that many expected to fail, the team is now very much living up to the low expectations that is usually placed upon them. And with the end of the season looming, many are already looking for ways to improve the Knicks for next season so that they might stand a chance in the suddenly stacked Eastern Conference. But what moves could they make to allow such a thing to happen? Allow us to show you Knicks trade rumors. Donovan Mitchell being plotted. The plan to get Mitchell. New York Knicks Executive Vice President William Wesley is gearing up to make a trade offer for Utah Jazz star Donovan Mitchell, according to Newsday's Steve Popper. Popper wrote, according to the same person who pointed to Wesley's criticism of Thibodeau, Wesley has been selling his plan, one that eventually will land Utah's Donovan Mitchell, a New York native. But this is not schmoozing a high school player and steering him to a college of choice. And it's not so simple even if the relationships are in place. Rose served as a former agent for Mitchell, and the front office also inserted Johnny Bryant as associate head coach after Bryant served as an assistant in Utah. The news comes after an Eastern Conference scout told Rick Bucher of Fox Sports in January that the Jazz are a first-round exit from Donovan being in New York. Mitchell has been a staple in Utah's lineup since the 2017-18 campaign. However, the Jazz haven't made many roster moves over the last few years and will need to do so if they hope to win an NBA title, even if that means parting ways with Mitchell. But will he leave? While some believe Mitchell would be open to returning to New York, where he grew up, the three-time All-Star told Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports earlier this month that he has no intention of leaving the Jazz in the future. I think I've reached a point where you're happy with yourself, first off. But as far as myself with the franchise, I see the articles, but I really address it with my teammates. I've seen it. I'm not too stressed about it. I'm not thinking about it because, for me, it's about how we can win. There's going to be talk whether I say something, whether I don't say something, because that's how I've always been. I've always been someone that's like, okay, they're saying stuff. Let's go ahead and lock in. I haven't really thought too much about it. I'm happy right now and just continuing to find ways to win. Mitchell has been a consistent scorer over his 5-year career and is averaging 25.9 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 5.2 assists while shooting 45.9% from the floor and 35.7% from deep in 47 games this season. While Mitchell remains loyal to the Jazz, anything could happen during the offseason, especially if the Knicks end up with a high first-round draft pick, which could be intriguing to Utah. However, it's unclear what the Knicks would have to give up in order to acquire Mitchell. In addition, it's unclear how much he alone would be able to help the franchise, which is in the midst of a highly disappointing season. More acquisitions would likely have to be made. Mitchell is in the first year of a 5-year, $163 million contract. The Knicks probably wouldn't have an issue taking on his contract, especially given Wesley's interest. And if recent events will play into this, and we all know they will, then we know that they're in need of a shot to the arm. Injuries. The New York Knicks will be in Texas on Wednesday evening to face off with the Dallas Mavericks, and for the game they have announced their injury report. The full injury report for the Knicks include Quentin Grimes, Nerlens Noel, Cam Reddish, Derrick Rose, Kemba Walker, Obi Toppin, and Luka Šimanić. All have been ruled out for the game. Meanwhile, Mitchell Robinson is listed as questionable due to an illness. The Knicks come into the game on a 2-game winning streak after beating the Los Angeles Clippers and Sacramento Kings in back-to-back games on the road. Prior to the 2 wins, they had been on a 7-game losing streak. So they are definitely in need of some new blood, if you will. And if not in a trade, then definitely in the draft. Draft prediction. While New York is currently projected to have the 9th pick as this is being written, the team could easily fall in the standings as there are 17 games left to play during the regular season, with several tough matchups along the way. With the 7th overall pick, ESPN has Wisconsin guard and 2021-22 Big Ten Player of the Year Johnny Davis being selected by the Knicks. The 6'5" combo guard is regarded as one of the top point guard options in the class, so it's obvious why ESPN has him going to New York. Davis came into his own during his sophomore campaign, improving in absolutely every area imaginable by a wide margin. Most notably, his scoring output increased from 7 points per game to 20 points per game. He's always been a tremendous rebounder at the guard spot, but this past season he became one of the best, if not the best, rebounding guard in the country by averaging over 8 boards per game. This is the exact kind of do-it-all point guard that would flourish in a Thibodeau-ran offense. The problem with Davis is that he projects to be more of a shooting guard at the next level, so it surprised many when ESPN mocked him to the Knicks of all teams. New York has so many secondary ball handlers between R.J. Barrett, Evan Fournier, Julius Randle, Emmanuel Quickley, and Alex Burks that adding one more into the equation would be redundant. The Knicks have been lacking a true facilitator for years now, and many think that they'd be silly to pass up on the opportunity to take Ty Washington out of Kentucky at this spot instead. Washington is by no means the second coming of Chris Paul, but he's a far better playmaker than Davis is today, and he projects to be a much more capable quarterback in the future. So, given that, and the rest of the issues with the Knicks, perhaps that's why they would be so driven to get someone like Donovan Mitchell. One player, big impact. There are many sad things about the New York Knicks, including that they've stunk for basically 2 decades now, ever since Patrick Ewing and that squad left the team, and they've only won 1 playoff series in many years. What's more, they've tried to get big players via signings, trading, and of course, drafting. But every time they do so, it seems to backfire on them. Remember when they signed Amar Stoudemire? Or Carmelo Anthony? Or when they drafted Kristaps Porzingis? Or brought in Phil Jackson to try and save the team, and he only made it worse? Yeah, it's bad. Which is why so many were shocked when a ragtag team of players were able to surge the Knicks to the playoffs. They lost easily, but they clearly had enough to make the playoffs at a good enough seed. So that's why so many were anxious to see what they could do now. But as you know, it didn't go as planned. Which brings us back to Donovan Mitchell. Sometimes a team just needs that one extra piece to get things rolling and make everything work. Look at the Phoenix Suns, for example. The year before they got Chris Paul, they were fighting for their lives to get into the NBA playoffs. Their first season with Chris Paul, they got to the NBA Finals. Pretty cool, huh? Now, we won't say that Mitchell will be that for the Knicks, but we also can't discount the possibility. After all, he is that good. And the Knicks do have some good pieces, just not the right ones. And their coach is one who has proven he can make things work, but even he would admit you need the right players to ensure it works. So given that, it wouldn't be that hard to picture them going all in on Mitchell to see if they could finally turn things around. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the New York Knicks, Donovan Mitchell, and whether these two sides can honestly come together to make something work? Do you think that an offseason trade is very much in the cards for these parties? Do you think that if Mitchell came to the Knicks that it would seriously change their makeup? Or would it be yet another failed attempt to make a good team? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.